I think it'd be silly of us to think we could just start our youth work projects up again as if nothing has happened. I think the reality is young people themselves are different. There's something like a micro generation of young people who are evolving right now. They've spent months away from school. They've been living in this really intense social melting pot at home. The media is full of afraid people. The young people we work with are just not the same young people, even if we work with the same young people. You think about the transitional milestones they're used to, things like exams, prom, induction weeks, all that sense of closure and new beginning has almost vanished from the landscape. I think the temptation is always going to be to imitate rather than innovate, is to look at what other people are doing well and go, how can I grab that and take it and drag it and drop it into my context and my local community? And I think that's the beginning of the end, because we need to evolve youth work around the young people who are right in front of us. And so I think one of the main things I'd say is put your fingers on the pulse of young people in your community and find out what works for them. A lot of that's going to be just start with a few who show up. And this goes against all of our carnal youth work instincts, which is to grab as many young people as possible and to keep things light and simple until the room's full. But I don't think we're in that possibility right now. In social distancing apart, it's hard to fill a room. I've always been moved by what Jesus did when he picked his disciples. He didn't spend 3 years filling the room. He started with the 12 blokes who showed up. So practically, that's going to be, how do you help those few young people become pioneers themselves? We're taking over a skate park. One of our team has come up with this idea with young people to adopt a skate park, and we're just going to be present in that space for young people on the streets. We're going to help them clean it. We're going to help them just take ownership of it. We've got young people delivering board game packs to families who are isolating. And so I think a lot of what you do practically right now is calling the schools and the food banks, the NHS, and saying, look, I've got a bunch of young people here, and all we want to do is serve you. We don't have to start putting out flyers and we don't have to launch a brilliant YouTube channel and suddenly get 1,000 subscribers to create a youth group. All of us know a couple of young people, whether that's a niece or a nephew or a friend of a friend, who just needs something, and you can just reach out to and just ask them how you can help them right now. What is it they need? Don't worry about branding. Don't worry about name. Don't worry about tuck shops and brash lights, whatever it might be to try and attract young people. Do something much more relational, much slower, authentic. And so one of the most innovative things I think we've been doing recently that a lot of people are finding works for them is cookery classes. And so all you do is you get Zoom. We have 2 cameras, one on a chopping block and one on the person presenting, but you don't have to do that. You send out a list of ingredients, 10, 15 young people at most, and you just explain the process. We made frying pan pizza, and the result, they all took pictures of their own pizzas and sent them in. It doesn't cause Zoom fatigue in the way that standard Zoom youth groups do. We've also done storyteller nights where we've literally just opened up Narnia and we've read it to them and got them to read bits. Writing sessions where you get people in the room who love to write and you just teach them how to do that for half an hour, a few days a week. We did Camp Not Camp, which was camping in your back garden or in your lounge, and every morning we had breakfast together online. There's so many just little things you can do for just a small number of young people that will make memories and make them want to invite their friends. I put together this book called Youth Ministry Online. It's a Grove booklet. We've brought together 6 different innovative youth work charities from across the UK, and we all got together and said, right, how do you do youth work in social media spaces when you've got no knowledge of those spaces?
We have a strategy, and just because the world stops doesn't mean our strategy and vision for youth work needs to stop. It's how do we adapt our strategy that we use for an online audience? And we've got intervention, investment, and impact are kind of 3 boxes. And intervention is all about meeting the young person where they're at on their playing field, where they like to go, if they're sporty or they like drama or music, meeting them where they're at. Then it's thinking about, once you've kind of met them, what's the invitation to the next box? Investment, want to really truly explore faith. So whether that's Alpha or a church service or something like that. And then we have our final box, which is impact, which is how do we have Christian young people, how do they impact back into the intervention? How do they impact their peer group? And so our challenge was, how do we use this in an online capacity? We had an Instagram account and we decided, right, first thing we're going to do is we're really going to engage with that, because that's kind of that intervention, meeting them where they're at. We first of all started off doing a 4-week long challenge where they did different, whether it was trick shots or it was maybe coming up with a rap or a song or something like that. where they, at the end of it, they kind of got an all expenses paid for trip somewhere, or a really awesome prize, basically. 4 weeks ended and everyone was like, I don't think I could do another 4-week challenge, Andy. So then we started to move it weekly and started to put smaller prizes, but ones that young people want, Some really simple things could be, you could set them a challenge to make something during their time, or to do one of those little domino shuffle things, something that they've got in their house that doesn't need loads of equipment to do. But thinking about the prize, because the prize is where the engagement is. They're not going to do it just for a bag of Haribo. Some of the prizes we did was we delivered Domino's pizza to their house, or they won like a film night where we bought them the DVD and a goodie bag. But then that was coupled with daily devotions. So when they're on the Instagram, they're seeing the fun of the challenge, they're seeing their own submissions, and then we are then backing it up with a daily devotion and saying, think about this today. Think about what's going on in lockdown. Think about choosing faith, not fear. The other thing we did is we put on, obviously we were doing lots of different Zoom things during the week. There's a thing called Jackbox Games on Steam, which I would go and have a look at. It's not that expensive, and it means you can have 8 players playing a game on Zoom together. We then invited them to, we had 2 things that they could come to. We had a Sunday youth session where it was very much kind of discipleship focused, but instead of just having a leader talking all the time, we had the young people themselves talk about what God's talking about. We had a sharing Sunday, and all these young people were sharing what God's been doing in their lives, and their non-Christian friends are talking about it and hearing it from the horse's mouth, as it were. I would just encourage you as well, especially if you're maybe a small church or not, is to find another church you can partner with and maybe do something online together. So we did Youth Alpha online with another church. One of those young people from the group that I was looking at actually became a Christian throughout lockdown, through the Alpha course. When we began to kind of come out of the first stage of lockdown and we were able to meet in groups of 6s, that's exactly what we did. Even just being able to share about, like, do a Bible study together, or we just talked about where people are at, what people are feeling, what people are nervous about for the future. We've been given guidelines by the government, we've been given guidelines by the National Youth Agency. I just really want to encourage you to use them. They're there for us to be able to use. And it is easy to go, we can't do this because COVID just blankets everything. But my encouragement to you is that God is still using churches, still using Christians at this time to make a difference. Some of the guidelines we used was around outdoor activities. So we did some sport times together with young people where they again could bring their friends. So some of their non-Christian friends that have been engaging with stuff online finally could come and meet us in the flesh, and we could bring the message. We'd just take a moment. One real quick example, we were playing rounders. And it was like, I think it was a really close game, and they needed one rounder to win. And so the person there was ready. And just before they took the hit, I told everyone, stop, take a knee. And we just asked, what did this person feel right now? Do they feel under pressure? And then it's going, well, what do you do when you're under pressure? And then telling them what I do under pressure, which is to pray. And this is how I feel God helps me when I feel under pressure. So using some of those games and activities to get the message across. We've seen growth in our youth group. As I mentioned, we had one person become a Christian, but we've also grown. People have been encouraged in their faith because we've also given them greater opportunity. Those who were Christians, we've given them a greater opportunity to be leaders and to share their faith at different times. Young people that we've kind of got on our books are all going to receive a lockdown survival pack, as it were, but we're also then going to give them that with another one for them to go and bless one of their friends with.
The understanding of how the Generation Z, those were the ones who were born into technology, who understood the screen and can navigate themselves through any app on a computer or on a smartphone. And they recognize that their online community is just as important as their offline community. And so the way they interact with people locally to them, if they're sat next to them, is just as important as the way that they want to connect with those on things like TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram. And so they see that connection as really important. So much so that when we looked at that a little bit more deeper with one particular youth group, we asked them, let's have a look at your battery usage and life on the battery for today on a Sunday. So she got up at 10 a.m. She went to a youth group that we visited at 6 p.m. And one of those young persons in particular, let's call her Jane, for instance, Jane showed us that her battery usage was 70% spent on TikTok. And then after that, there's a percentage on Instagram and Snapchat. And it's their engagement, it's their building community, it's their connection with people, it's their way of expressing themselves. The Generation Z, they click, swipe, tap to find out information. For instance, you and I, we would have stayed up till 10 o'clock to watch the news on BBC or whatever. They have direct access to anything that they're engaging with through a click, swipe, and tap, which is why it's really important for the church to really think about how these can be modern day versions of detached youth work. It's a smartphone. And I believe strongly that using virtual reality and augmented reality to immerse a generation into exploring key things and faith is really important. And that's the thing, is Generation Z, they don't want to be told what they should look at. They want to navigate to their conclusion themselves, which is why it's really important to us to rethink right now how we're doing online engagement with young people. Zoom is our digital best friend. The idea of creating an online youth group session for some of the youth workers that we've been supporting and coaching in the north of Leeds and Bradford itself is that they've been stressed out trying to work out, how do I entertain my young people now for an hour and a half? And actually what we've been saying to them is, no, what young people want is connectivity and it's regularity. It's something that you're regularly connecting with them in a way. And so don't try and do an hour and a half session, do a 40 minutes. And don't try and do a Bible study for 40 minutes. Do it for the length of an assembly, which is around 7 to 14 minutes long. And so once you start to kind of de-stress that role of digital engagement to, well, if I can get one good nugget through on this conversation, that is one good nugget more than that they would have probably glazed over if I was doing a 40-minute Bible study. Don't get me wrong, Chris, I do believe Bible study is important, but the idea of doing something that's manageable for the viewer is really important. So we've been training youth workers to think about planning a 40-minute session, for instance, a Minecraft session that we've been doing. We've traveled around the different groups because youth workers said, I'm struggling to connect with my 11 to 14-year-olds. They've dropped off. So we decided to create a Minecraft experience with a young person making us a world, hosting it with us on a weekly session and joining with us in discipling young people. And they have got 40 minutes to play. They build something. We then articulate what they've built from a biblical narrative because we set them a theme linked to the Bible passage. And then they hear one another talk about the why of what they've built. And as a result of that, we then bring a good gospel message into their Minecraft experience. And then they come back every week because we've seen that connection through Minecraft, which is what they love. I want to encourage the churches to not expect from youth workers to be CBBC presenters, because we're not. Because actually what young people want is authenticity and truth. They don't want to be entertained. And we think we need to entertain a generation to bring them true message of Jesus. But actually, what we really want to be doing is talking to them about authentic truth of the gospel through a means in which they can engage with.
And so during lockdown, we decided that we were going to go online on Zoom, as many people did. And we were running a weekly football club on a Saturday, but we decided to continue running a weekly Zoom club. And even though we couldn't play football, we decided to do fun games on Zoom and adapt those. And so we did lots of different things. We did a living room Olympics. We did read my lips on Zoom, where you mute yourself. We did gargle a tune, which was hilarious. During these clubs, we also shared a 5-minute gospel talk with the kids, so they got to hear about Jesus. And we also did fun prizes and raffles to bring kids and engage with them. And we also ran weekly Bible studies as well. During lockdown, when we were online, we found that actually engaging with the families as well as the kids has worked really, really well as they're at home and everyone's at home together. So we've done that in a few ways. We ran a community quiz aimed at families and kids, and that was really great time for them all to come together and feel a part of something. And we also have done some movie nights where we've dropped snacks at the houses and the whole family have watched a movie together, and we've been chatting on Zoom at the same time.
As kind of restrictions eased, we did things like driveway games. So we would literally turn up at the kids' houses and just play games with them socially distanced. We bought things like we asked them to have a bowl, and we threw paper in the bowl. We made paper aeroplanes, and it just that point of contact to be with them in person was just something really special. And then as the restrictions really started to ease over the summer, it allowed us to do some more bigger in-person things. Did is something called Camp in a Bag. So we went to a local park and we literally got some drawstring bags, and in there was a few goodies and a few different kind of challenges for them to do in this park, which included like a photo scavenger hunt. It included a few different games that we could do. And again, it was just a great opportunity to bring kids together and to show them that we cared. Showing up matters. As much as all of us are probably fed up of Zoom, I know I am, I know the kids probably are, we know for a fact that just showing up is vital. We can be creative with that as we head into this lockdown again. Football is a huge part of what we do. So we're looking to bring that online. So I'm going to be trying to do some skill sessions via Zoom. And also we're going to try and see if we can stream football matches with the kids, invite them to come, share my screen, and as a group, just watch a football match together.
One of the things that I'm going to be doing with girls is doing craft workshops. Each week I'm going to go to their houses, drop off all the materials that they'll need, and then we're going to do a tutorial online on Zoom, and we can all make it together.
In terms of the things that have helped me as a volunteer youth worker in my local church, there's a wonderful free series of sessions called Together Apart, and the idea of these is they were designed specifically for lockdown. They're designed to be led online, and there's 2 rounds of these now which are free to download. So if you're a local youth worker, or if you're a church leader who needs to try and help resource your youth worker or volunteers, that's a great place to go as something that's been designed specifically to work in this kind of season. And I think the other thing I would recommend is a little booklet called Now What? And it's designed for youth workers, but actually I think it's really relevant for anyone in ministry and anyone trying to make sense of everything that's happened in the last 6 months and how to navigate that theologically, what that means personally, what that means kind of thinking to the future, how do we plan? And it's this little booklet called Now What is a series of 10 reflective exercises or theological reflections, just to guide you through that process of trying to process your own thoughts, of getting down on paper perhaps how you're feeling,